Could the secret of life on Earth be hidden within the ancient pyramids of Egypt?
The Great Pyramid is evidence of a phenomenal knowledge of the science of astronomy.
To build the Great Pyramid in 20 years would require a technology we don't have today.
If the ancient Egyptians could not have built these fantastic structures, then who did? Was the great medieval psychic Nostradamus able to predict the future?
He was a master astrologer, master psychic.
He saw future events with remarkable clarity.
Nostradamus accurately predicted the Challenger shuttle disaster.
Can we afford to ignore his warnings for these final years of the tormented 20th century? Besides the Americas, did Christopher Columbus discover another, more sinister world?
Einstein had a theory that the Bermuda Triangle was an interdimensional doorway to another world.
Do we really know what is behind all the disappearances of ships, planes, and people in the mysterious Bermuda Triangle? Is a connection between the supernatural and mankind scientifically provable?
What could, from a dead body, create such an image?
Right now, space science may be unlocking the nature of the Shroud of Turin. Is this the face of Jesus Christ? The ancient people who lived on our planet had knowledge and technology that we today do not understand. They were able to accomplish feats that we have been unable to duplicate. Even with the help of powerful computers and our most advanced space technology, our scientists are unable to determine how they did it. I'm Darren McGavin, and we are about to explore some of the most fascinating and astounding ancient mysteries of the world. There is an ancient Egyptian proverb that says, "Everything fears time, but time fears the pyramids." They are the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world to remain standing, and they are still the largest human constructions on Earth, if indeed they were built by humanity. No one even knows where the word pyramid comes from. There are no roots for the word in any language on Earth. We have been to the moon, but the pyramids remain a puzzle wrapped in an enigma, hidden in timeless mystery.
As an Egyptologist, the only mystery I can see about the pyramids is that people still consider them a mystery.
Not one of the traditional concepts about the pyramids or the builders has been proven.
They are simply monumental tombs built for Egyptian pharaohs.
No dead king or any other mummified corpse has ever been found in the Great Pyramid. Everything else about this ancient wonder remains a mystery to traditional thinkers, which leads us to believe that a higher power was involved, whose purpose was much more significant than entombing a pharaoh.
This is a very old and a very heated controversy. Even as Alexander the Great stood in awe before the pyramids, his generals were arguing about how they came to be. But whatever else they are, the pyramids are a reality, and realities can be measured and quantified. From the watchtowers of the Babylonian astrologers to the astrophysics labs of today, many, many scientists have long been agreed. The Great Pyramid of Khufu could not have been built with the quasi-Stone Age technology of 2900 BC. Yet, there it is, 42 stories high, covering an area of 10 football fields, an almost solid mass of 2,500,000 intricately fitted stone blocks, weighing from 2 1/2 to 10 tons. Enough stone to build more than 35 Empire State Buildings.
It's doubtful that ancient Egyptians had any knowledge of modern geology, and without this science, it's inconceivable that a structure this size could be built which would not crumble from lack of a proper foundation. Normally, it would just sink slowly into the ground. In modern construction, engineers find a settling rate of 6 inches in 100 years acceptable for office buildings. The U.S. Capitol, for example, has settled 5 inches during the past 200 years. In 5,000 years, the Great Pyramid, weighing 14 billion pounds, has settled less than 1/2 inch.
In modern construction, if the builders could maintain each side of the 756-foot wall within 6 inches of being perfectly straight, then it would be a tremendous accomplishment. But the Great Pyramid is only off of straight alignment by approximately 1/4 of an inch. That's totally impossible to duplicate in today's modern construction field.
Originally, the Giza pyramids were covered entirely with finely polished white limestone. On his first expedition to Egypt under Julius Caesar, Mark Antony said the Great Pyramid could be seen from a distance of 100 miles, shining in the sunlight like a precious jewel.
The 115,000 outer casing stones, weighing up to 10 tons each, were removed in the 14th century to build the city of Cairo, leaving the pyramids at Giza as they are today. Now, these casing stones were fitted to tolerances of 1/2000th of an inch, so precise that a razor blade cannot be inserted between the joints.
But it isn't just construction experts who find the pyramids mind-boggling. Astronomers and mathematicians also find the structure truly amazing.
In building the Great Pyramid, architects utilized several highly advanced mathematical concepts not even discovered until thousands of years later. Now, how the architects came by these yet undiscovered mathematical concepts simply defies imagination.
Just as the construction techniques are still baffling, so is the relationship of the Great Pyramid to the Earth and to the stars.
The geographical orientation of the Great Pyramid of Giza is perhaps its single most amazing characteristic. Its sides run almost exactly from north to south and east to west. The deviation is within 3 arc minutes from true north. How could an ancient quasi-Stone Age culture have been able to determine true north?
The Great Pyramid is evidence of a phenomenal knowledge of the science of astronomy. They could measure the day, the year, and the precession of the equinoxes. They knew that the Earth was a sphere, and they knew how to compute latitude and longitude accurately.
But there have always been many investigators that think the pyramids transcend earthly measurements and that they are paranormal in nature. In the latter years of the 19th century, pyramidology came into being. This is a study based on the theory that the Great Pyramid was a cosmic force collector, operating on principles similar to the electrostatic condensers in our modern electronics. This concept has drawn the interest of many scientists and pyramid theorists.
There's a vortex of energy emanating from the apex of the pyramid, which actually expands in diameter as it rises higher and higher into the heavens. A simple example of this emanating apex energy was first demonstrated by British inventor Sir W. Siemens. When he drank from the wine bottle he brought along, he experienced a slight shock as the bottle touched his lips. The electrical activity intrigued Siemens so much that he took a wet newspaper, wrapped it around the bottle, converting it into a crude electrical accumulator, which most high school science students would recognize as a Leyden jar. Although we don't know why or how, the Great Pyramid seems to be an accumulator of energies.
Schools have long taught, as established fact, that the Great Pyramid was the tomb of the pharaoh Khufu. This theory is based on an alleged discovery of his royal cartouche, Khufu's name and seal in the so-called burial chamber. But this theory has been badly shaken by some recent and shocking discoveries.
There is no hard evidence anywhere that the pyramids were ever intended to be burial tombs for the pharaoh kings. Although the standard archaeological argument is that these tomb chambers were robbed of their contents.
The pyramid builders left Khufu's name in graffiti on huge blocks above the ceiling of the burial chamber, graffiti that no one saw until 1837.
Concerning the hieroglyphic graffiti, I discovered this to be a forgery done in May of 1837. I received a letter from a Mr. Allen in Pittsburgh. It was his great-grandfather who witnessed Mr. Hill going in with the red paint and brush to achieve the forgery. When the great-grandfather objected, he was fired from his job and banished from Giza. Examining a facsimile, it became obvious to me that it was a forgery because Mr. Hill misspelled the royal name. Instead of writing Khufu, he wrote Raufu, which would have been like taking the name of God in vain, something which would have never happened.
With so many intriguing possibilities, does it still seem reasonable that the Giza complex is nothing more than a massive graveyard for royalty?
In spite of the bizarre and science-fictional theories about these pyramids at Giza, they were and are nothing more than funerary monuments built around 2600 BC. Giza is a funerary complex, nothing more, nothing less.
There is a burial complex at Giza, but that hardly proves that Giza is only a burial complex. It would be much the same as considering the Cathedral of Notre Dame a burial complex because there's a graveyard beside it.
The Sphinx was erected by Khafre, the builder of the second pyramid, and many Egyptologists believe the face bears a distinct resemblance to his own.
Also, attributing the Sphinx to the pharaoh Khafre has become untenable. Recent archaeological and geological discoveries demonstrate that the Sphinx is at least 10,000 years old and maybe even older.
Of the many misconceptions about the pyramids of Egypt, one that stands out is the mythical curse of the pharaohs. It grows out of the activities of opening the tombs, like Tutankhamun's in the Valley of the King, some 350 miles distant from the Great Pyramid complex at Giza.
The curse of the pharaoh's story begins in the 1920s when two Englishmen, Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon, discovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Among the spectacular riches, Carter and Carnarvon uncovered a tablet on which a dire curse had been written. Death will slay with his wings whoever disturbs the peace of Pharaoh. The warning did not make them nervous, but they were afraid their native assistants might panic and quit. They crossed out any mention of the tablet's discovery from their records and tossed it into the rubble. The whole incident might have been forgotten forever had not some 36 scholars and others connected with the excavation died sudden and mysterious deaths. Carnarvon and Carter were about to uncover the mummy itself when Lord Carnarvon became deathly ill. Although suspecting an infection, doctors were uncertain of a diagnosis. He died before his son reached his bedside, and precisely at the moment of his death, an unexplainable power blackout occurred all over Cairo. Another victim was American architect Arthur Mace, who had been the person to rip out the last piece of wall blocking the entrance to the tomb. He died in the same hotel with the same symptoms as Carnarvon, feverish and in a sudden coma. The morning after Carter had shown his friend George Gould the tomb, Gould awoke with a high fever. By nightfall, he was dead. Radiologist Archibald Douglas Reed was the first to cut the mummy's wrapping and x-ray it. Reed died aboard ship on his way home to England.
What caused these untimely and coincidental deaths among the invaders of King Tut's sacred tomb? Could they have been caused naturally from inhaling an ancient bacteria or virus? Dr. Ezzeddin Taha, an eminent physician and biologist in Cairo, held a press conference in 1962. He claimed discovery of an ancient microscopic fungus that had probably survived in a dormant state for thousands of years, which could be controlled by modern antibiotics. Ironically, before he could prove his theory, Dr. Taha was killed in a freak automobile accident. Later autopsy revealed he had died of the same circulatory collapse as the others and may have been already dead before his car careened off the road. Could it be that there is something to the curse of the pharaohs? Or, as many pyramidologists are now theorizing, that the deadly virus that killed all these people was literally from out of this world? Could a Stone Age people have built these pyramids that cannot be duplicated today? New evidence we are not alone in this universe when we come back with a chilling discovery. The more we learn about the Giza complex, the more unsure we are of conventional theories for explaining the mysteries of the structures in this great pyramid. If conventional theories do not explain the purpose for the pyramids, what do more contemporary theories have to offer?
In 1813, astronomer Richard Proctor discovered from ancient records that the Great Pyramid had indeed been used as an astronomical instrument.
The pyramids are essentially crystalline in structure, and therefore highly receptive to radio-like energy waves or even cosmic microwaves. The Great Pyramid at Giza, with its 5 granite slabs above the king's chamber, are what the ancient Egyptians called spirit stone, and they could have been a massive receiver-transmitter tuned to some distant part of the universe of which we are still ignorant.
Based on evidence provided by Sumerian texts, it appears that the Giza pyramids were built as beacons by extraterrestrials as part of a landing corridor ending at a spaceport in the Sinai desert.
There are numerous theories about the purpose of the Great Pyramid of Giza, ranging from the preposterous to the ingenious. But what is distinctly missing is how in this world were they built?
The Greek historian Herodotus visited the Giza site in the 5th century BC. He wrote that the Egyptians of that time told him that a continuous crew of 100,000, replaced every 3 months, worked a period of 20 years to build the Great Pyramid.
To build the Great Pyramid in 20 years, as some archaeologists claim, would have meant setting one of those huge stones every 3.5 minutes, 24 hours a day. That would require a technology we don't have today.
It's difficult to justify the premise that the Great Pyramids were built with primitive stone and copper tools. These people had no knowledge of the wheel as a means of transportation. No pulleys, no modern surveying equipment, winches, derricks, or block and tackle. Hundreds of blocks weighing 30 tons are situated high in the Great Pyramid. The only mechanical devices that they had were the lever, the roller, and the inclined plane.
But setting the stones in place was only one of the problems. Bringing the stones from the quarries to the construction site was an equally imposing task.
They were moved on huge sledges or pulled across a bed of rolling logs. Those stones that came from the distant quarries were barged downriver to the site. A great causeway led from the river landing, and the stones were moved up its mile length. Once on site, the stones were pulled up ramps and levered from tier to tier and then set in place. The process was incredibly labor-intensive and perhaps the greatest single effort of men working together to accomplish a dream.
There is a widespread general belief, which Hollywood has helped to promote, that hundreds of thousands of slaves were used to build the pyramids. Nothing could be further from the truth.
The Egyptians of the 4th dynasty were neither a formidable military nation nor a very aggressive one. But even if they were, there were not enough potential slaves within a 5,000-mile radius to have supplied the workforce needed.
The generally accepted academic viewpoints are divided equally between the rollers and the rampers. These two theories are being taught in the schools right now as facts, when they're not even substantial theories.
With the ramper school of Egyptology, we are asked to believe that a mile-long ramp was built, rising in slope as the pyramid increased in height. Actually, it would have required more effort to build the ramp than to build the pyramid itself. There would have been some 6 billion pounds of construction garbage to get rid of afterwards. But where is it? Does anyone know?
This question is one which even the most adamant of the ramp theorists cannot answer. But what about the log roller theory? Couldn't the stones have been moved to the site this way?
Moving a given stone in this manner can be demonstrated, but some rather obvious consideration should have dispelled this notion long ago. The only trees available in ancient Egypt were date palms, and as a food source, it's unlikely they would have been cut down. Importing logs would have required more shipping than Egypt has ever possessed in its entire history, just to transport the 25 million trees needed. Next, it's virtually impossible to roll a log on stone chip roads. But even if they could be rolled, the great weight of the stones would have crushed the logs to pulp within a very short distance.
There must have been another totally different method of lifting and moving these tremendously heavy stones, a device that would make the moving of these massive weights feasible. However, we know of no such device available in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians were not the architects nor the builders of the Great Pyramid.
Dr. Joseph Davidovitz and I advocate that the pyramid blocks are a superior form of concrete. This is a sample from the ascending passageway of the Great Pyramid. Some geologists have studied it and agree that it is man-made rock.
The Great Pyramid was the greatest single undertaking in the whole history of mankind. And yet there is not one picture or drawing, not one artifact, not one inventory or tally sheet to tell of its construction. The Egyptians left us some 3,000 years of written and pictorial history, covering virtually everything that happened in their culture, from babies being born to plowing and harvesting, building, weaving, sacrificing, praying, embalming, but nothing about the pyramids of Giza. Why?
If the Egyptians did not build the Giza Pyramid complex, who did? Well, there are experts who tell us recent discoveries on the planet Mars could possibly give us those answers. Richard Hoagland, a former consultant to NASA, did not discover the now famous face on Mars, but he is the prime force behind the Mars mission, a private organization of international scientists whose findings have captured the world's imagination.
A NASA Viking scientist, Dr. Tobias Owen, actually discovered the first of the monuments of Mars in 1976, a gigantic mile-long human-looking head lying in a northern Martian desert. In 1979, two NASA-contracted imaging analysts later discovered that there were two photos of the face, taken at two different lighting angles by the Viking spacecraft, as well as a massive pyramidal structure close at hand, now known as the D&M Pyramid. Their findings were quickly dismissed by NASA as an optical illusion. But after years of fruitless debate, a member of our team, Dr. Mark Carlotto, decided to use a state-of-the-art 3D computer modeling technique which now strongly indicates that the face could in fact be a real three-dimensional human-looking sculpture lying on the Martian surface. A sculpture 1,500 feet high and over a mile long. I and my colleagues have found a number of additional anomalous structures at Cydonia, and we have shown, using the most modern computer imaging processing available, that these Cydonia structures show clear evidence of being highly geometric.
In simple terms, advanced civilization creates things like buildings, cities, pyramids, that are inescapably composed of repeating geometric patterns. And the face on Mars, its nearby pyramids, the entire Cydonia complex is simply brimming with this elegant, repeating geometric structure.
The fundamental mathematical relationships communicated by the structures at Cydonia are now eerily replicated in the Giza complex here on Earth, including the very placement of the Sphinx. Even the key latitude of Giza, north of the equator, is now directly linked to the D&M Pyramid latitude at Cydonia on Mars. That in itself is now the single most striking statement of intelligence on Mars that we have found.
Hoagland and his team have gone even further. They've conducted detailed imaging analyses of the face on Mars. They compared it to the Sphinx and discovered that the two man-lion images, located millions of space miles apart, contain amazing visual and symbolic similarities.
Our team's thinking is that that face is our face, or what we once were. So in a sense, someday we may discover that we, in fact, were the Martians. That is why all of us are bringing so much pressure now to bear on NASA to specifically and exhaustively rephotograph the Cydonia complex on Mars. The thing that overwhelms me is the possibility that on some of those images of Cydonia, we will find conclusive proof of a connection between the monuments of Mars and the monuments of Earth as represented by the pyramids at Giza. If that's true, then obviously all our history, this dim inkling of who we are and how we have come to be on this small planet, will be changed.
The pyramids at Giza are truly a great mystery of the ages. Is it possible that they are a replication of the site at Cydonia on Mars? I mean, if there should prove to be a connection between the two, then who were the space-traveling builders? Is the city of Cairo related to Giza as the face pyramids complex is to Cydonia? Incidentally, Cairo is a Seleucid Arab word that means Mars.